store. Zero Res cleans carpet, tile, hardwood, rugs, upholstery, and air ducts using no harsh soaps or chemicals, and it's safe for pets. Right now, they've extended their Labor Day sale where you can get 3 rooms Zero Resified for $119. Call 9520-RES or visit ZeroResMinnesota.com. That's ZeroResMinnesota.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk where facts matter. Welcome to The Gailey Show, the only daily LGBTQ progressive radio news and talk show in the United States. I am your host, John Parker. In studio with me today is Jim Pound.
Hey, all.
And it got cold out. Patrick was doing the weather, and I was like, no, Patrick, what's happening?
Yeah,
but that's a great time to travel up to Marquette, John.
Well, but
and I mean that in all seriousness.
Touche, Patrick. Touche. Should we do that after we clean our carpets with Zero Res? No, we could clean the carpets with Zero Res while we're going on our trip to Marquette. Yep. See, it's all coming together. All the sponsors of
It's going to be 44 degrees tonight here.
Don't.
Somebody just said.
Don't.
I mean, Marquette's great in the summer, but in the fall is really when I want to be in a place like Marquette.
Yeah.
Yes.
The colors.
Yeah. For a lot of reasons. Yeah. For a lot of reasons. Also, the fudgies have gone away. Oh, okay. You know, so you can get it's all to yourself.
Wow.
You know, it's all to yourself.
You're very selfish about your
There's
travel.
a film festival, actually. We're almost locked in to a film festival. We're not getting paid extra for this, folks. The Freshwater Film Festival, which is in mid-October. We are kind of locking in on that particular weekend to head down there. Cool. Okay, this is going to be a legal show.
Oh, good.
Because I was writing on Blue Sky this morning. I don't like those questions of do you have regrets? When it comes to your career, because I'm like, look, I played the hand that was dealt to me, and I've largely done things that I have liked to do, like this show. Broadcasting is something, whether it's on TV or on radio, I like doing that. I'm happy with that. But I have to say, I do have an official regret.
Okay.
Which is not having become a lawyer.
Oh.
Because I could be making, and I would not be a high-powered lawyer. What I would be is probably a broke lawyer who spent all of his time suing fascists and their capitulators.
I think it's called a storefront lawyer.
Well, I'd be just walking, reading the news and going, no, you're not allowed to do that, and just filing suit. Finding someone who has standing and filing a suit on behalf of them. Every single Ivy League school right now, I would want to be a lawyer so I could be suing them.
Right.
So it's too late for me to become a lawyer for right now. So we're going to spend some time doing some legal shows and talking to actual lawyers. So in the second half hour of the show, Sara Jane Baldwin, who is the senior staff attorney at Gender Justice, will join us to discuss a lawsuit that Gender Justice has filed on behalf of an 18-year-old Minnesotan. We're going to break down the details of the case and how a server followed this 18-year-old into a bathroom at a Buffalo Wild Wings to harass them. Okay. Later in the show, also, Jim is going to break down a very important election for the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. Looking forward to breaking those details. The Michigan Attorney General, Dana Nessell, has put the University of Michigan on notice. Continue offering LGBTQ healthcare or face a lawsuit. Going to get into that in just a second. But someone tried to call me out on the Blue Sky for something that I was talking about yesterday. Where they're like, it is so, you're just whatever, repeal and replacing the Second Amendment, it'll never happen. How would that even start? And I have an answer for you exactly of how that work should begin. City, county, state resolutions. You can go to your city council or your county commission and you can ask them to take up a resolution to repeal, to advocate that the city of Minneapolis or the city of Owatonna now, resolutes or whatever the language is resolves to repeal the Second Amendment and replace it with something to the effect of Americans can bear arms subject to regulation and approval by Congress.
Right.
Something to that effect. Then you start to rack up these cities, counties, state level resolutions. get your governors to sign on to them. Probably be a little bit harder with governors, because of where they're at right now. But those cities, those counties, and then you start getting your Democratic parties to begin to introduce these planks into the party platform.
Right.
And there you go. That is the beginning of the movement, to start having the conversation.
Right. Well, I think it's only ignorance that keeps the second and greed on the part of gun manufacturers and the NRA that keeps it in place, because it has no purpose from its original purpose. So we do need to revisit it, because it's an 18th century notion that doesn't
Allow
exist
yourselves. You're either surrendering to the idea that this is going to continue to happen
anymore.
because
Forever.
MAGA is pro-gun and they're never going to let that go.
Well, they're
So you're
more
either
than
going to
pro-gun.
surrender yourself to mass shootings in the United States, or you're going to get real
Right.
and say the problem is the Supreme Court, who is always going to give the maximum legal power to the Second Amendment. So you need
Right.
to change the Second Amendment. And
Yeah.
that work begins with those cities, with those counties, work your way up to the states, and start working with your local Democratic Party to introduce resolution to repeal and replace the Second Amendment.
I think it's the way to take
I'll give you the last word on this, Jim, before we move on to another subject.
to take the initiative, as opposed to being on the defensive, as we have been for decades. Take the initiative.
Enough.
That's right.
Enough is
The
enough.
people say enough.
We have waited around for all the investment in healthcare.
Yep.
And we've waited along for the red flag laws and the blah, blah, blah laws. Like,
I know.
we've done it.
Yep.
We've been there. We've done it. We've been dealing with this since 1999.
Yep.
Enough is enough.
Yep.
We are going to deal with the root of the problem, which is
Yep.
the Second Amendment. Repeal and replace it. Go to your cities, go to your counties, go to your states, go to your Democratic Party.
That's
Apparently,
leadership.
I'm giving myself the last word on that.
Apparently.
Well, all right. I want to switch to other legal news here, because this is very important. And I want other attorney general offices in Democratic states to follow this particular story, which is coming out of Michigan. So the Michigan Attorney General, Dana Nessell, who is part of the LGBTQ community, has gone after the University of Michigan health system. That health system has suspended gender affirming care for all trans patients under 19. And they are saying that they're not going to provide any more puberty blockers or gender affirming hormones for patients under age 19. Now, to be very clear here about puberty blockers, because I have not a doctor, but I have worked in LGBTQ health equity for 3 years, and I really did a deep dive into this. Puberty blockers are not permanent. They are temporary. And the minute you get off of puberty blockers, then puberty starts up again and does its thing, right? So that is not a permanent thing. That is usually if medicine is needed when a child is going through gender affirming care. Puberty blockers is usually the first step, and it is not permanent.
Right.
When you get to the level of hormones, that's usually when you're verging on being an adult. And that is a different situation. That should be a conversation between a doctor who understands science and medicine and the decades of peer-reviewed research that has gone into making sure all of this is safe.
Right.
And we've demonstrated saves lives.
Like vaccines. But
Vaccines,
anyway,
like
I digress.
abortion. Sorry, that was the word that I was looking for there.
Yep.
So let's backtrack. Like, how do we get to this point? So the University of Michigan health system received a federal subpoena from the Trump administration, their criminal and civil investigation into gender affirming care for minors. And they said that they sent 20 subpoenas to doctors and clinics that were involved in performing trans medical procedures on children. Now, Michigan, so Attorney General Nessell, along with other states, including Illinois, for our Chicago listeners, including in Minnesota, A.G. Ellison, for our listeners in Minneapolis and Minnesota, they all joined together and filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration and these executive orders saying, nope, you can't do this. And that lawsuit is seeking to block specifically 2 executive orders that are restricting federal grants and funding to institutions who are providing trans healthcare to young people. Well, A.G. Nessell, it hasn't happened yet in Minnesota, and it hasn't happened yet in Illinois, but in Michigan, A.G. Nessell has said in a very pointed statement that Michigan Medicine, so the University of Michigan's medicine program, is a cowardly acquiescence to political pressure from this president and his administration, and has officially warned that her office will be considering all of our options if they violate Michigan law.
Mm-hmm.
I want to also read from this statement. The statement also says, refusing healthcare services to a class of individuals based on their protected status, such as withholding the availability of services from transgender individuals based on their gender identity or their diagnosis of gender dysphoria, while offering such services to cisgender individuals, may constitute discrimination under Michigan law.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some folks are like, well, wait a minute, puberty blockers and hormone therapy, like that's not just for trans kids. No, it is not. So if you're going to only offer them to cisgender kids
Mm-hmm.
and not offer them to trans kids, that is discrimination. And here's the part that I absolutely loved. Quoting from the statement, the availability of federal funding has no bearing on Michiganders' right to seek and receive healthcare services without discrimination. Again, the availability of federal funding has no bearing on Michiganders' right to seek and receive healthcare services without discrimination. And what I love about this is that the healthcare systems right now are trying to make themselves the victims in this situation when they are being collaborators. They are giving into this when they do not need to be giving into this, and they shouldn't be giving into this, and they need to be fighting it tooth and nail with all of their lawyers. And so I love that AG Nessell is saying, no. You can't break the law just because the president is withholding federal funds. Right. That's not how this works.
It would be reasonable for any organization, college or hospital, to say, oh, we're going to have to, given the smaller budget, if we don't get federal funds, we're going to have to refigure things. But I think you're right. They're just running down the rat hole because it's easier than having to do the hard work of changing their own priorities.
Well, thank you, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessell. We are going to be following that case. We have to take a break here. Before we do, I want to share about our travel partner, Travel Marquette. And the reason why is that for the past decade, Marquette County and Marquette, the city, has become a very special place for me. I first went there 10 years ago, and I have been going every year since then, at least once a year, usually 2 times a year. And I love that I can go there because I can travel without having to worry about being queer. And so if this is something that you would like to do, to go up to a place where there is good food, good bakeries, good shopping, head to travelmarquette.com to start your journey. Travelmarquette.com. You're listening to The Gailey Show. We will be right back after these messages.
It's State Fair season, and that means big savings at Chanhassen Dinner Theaters. Now through September 10th, save $25 on tickets to select performances of Grease, White Christmas, or just announced Guys and Dolls. It's the perfect time to plan your next night out. Dinner and a show, all in one unforgettable experience. Tickets and details at chanhassendt.com/fair25. Chanhassen Dinner Theaters, always entertaining you.
Hey, it's Tom. There's a war being waged on clean energy. A bill in Congress could eliminate the 30% federal tax credit for solar by the end of 2025. And once it's gone, it may never come back. Fossil fuel giants and their MAGA friends in Washington want to kill green energy. But you can fight back. Going solar with All Energy Solar isn't just smart, it's a form of resistance. You choose where your money goes, not to utility companies, not to fossil fuel billionaires, but toward clean, renewable power for your home. A system from All Energy Solar works in Minnesota year-round because it runs on sunlight, not heat. So even in the dead of winter, you're generating electricity. And All Energy Solar helps you save with every rebate and incentive available. This is the moment to act. Waiting means risking with this tax credit and giving the upper hand to MAGA Republicans. So get your free consultation today at allenergysolar.com and take back your power.
Overwhelmed trying to make sense of Medicare? As a licensed advisor, I can help you determine your healthcare needs and evaluate your options. I'm Harvey Pearl of Pearl & Company, and I want you to have the peace of mind knowing you have the best coverage available. You deserve an advocate you can trust and coverage you can rely on. And there's no fee, ever. Annual enrollment is October 15th through December 7th. Find me at pearlsofwisdom.com. That's PERLES of wisdom.com. So we can strategize together.
Hi, this is Frank Brown of Minuteman Press Uptown with a question for our listeners. How important are business values to you? When you need high-quality digital print, it matters who you work with. You see, Minuteman Uptown is unique. We're one of the only union print shops in Minnesota providing our team with living wages and benefits. We believe in second chances for justice-impacted individuals who want to contribute to the community, and we are active in local issues. We've been in the streets standing up for racial, social, and economic justice. At Minuteman Uptown, our mission is to connect all communities through technology-driven print solutions. An example of that mission is when I moved Minuteman Uptown to North Minneapolis. We're invested in this local community, and we help small businesses and local organizations throughout the Twin Cities reach their audiences. Reach out to Minuteman Uptown and partner with a printer that shares your values. Call us today at 612-870-0777 or visit us at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. I am John Parker. We are coming up on the bottom of the hour. I know there was the Epstein news conference that was happening with victims and survivors earlier today. I've been monitoring that. We're going to have more about that. I'm watching how that all goes down. Interesting that 4 Republicans, 3 of them women, have defied the House GOP leadership and the White House in an effort to force a vote on a bill that would require the Justice Department to release all the information in the so-called Epstein files.
Of course.
Obviously, this is an ongoing story. We will continue to follow that. Something that is breaking that I just absolutely love. Also, legal news here to keep with our theme of the show today. The conservative news network Newsmax has filed an antitrust lawsuit against Fox News on Wednesday, saying that Fox has sought to maintain its market dominance through intimidation and exclusionary business practices designed to stifle competition. Fox has sought to block television distributors from carrying Newsmax or minimize its exposure, pressured guests not to appear on the rival network, and hired private detectives to investigate Newsmax executives, said the lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court in South Florida. Newsmax seeks a jury trial. Reading there directly from AP News, breaking that story there. That is delightful. Can't wait to see how that goes down.
Well, this is where my optimism comes from. These are really hateful people. I mean, down to a person, I'm sorry. But when the plug in the system, so to speak, is flushed out, there's going to be a competition and a battle and a fight to the death amongst all of these maniacs going after each other. You know, they've all been rallying behind the big, enormous one, and now they're going to not have that protection, and they're going to go for each other's throats, and it's going to be glorious, dangerous, but glorious
It'll
to
be
watch.
Very interesting to see how a lawsuit between Newsmax and Fox News turns out, particularly as it relates to antitrust, because typically MAGA has fallen on the side of pro-trust, not antitrust. They're a big fan of monopolies there. So it'll be very curious to see how all of that shakes out. Keeping with our legal theme of the show today, Jim, you're going to give us a breakdown of a very important election coming up this November, which is about the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania.
This is something that I think is driven, and there's been a lot of criticism about National Democrats not raising a lot of money, and whose name's been thrown on that boat. But in Pennsylvania, the same way we faced in Wisconsin last year, similarly, I should say, 3 of the justices currently serving, 3 Democrats, are up for what they call retention. In a sort of odd way of doing this, every 10 years, a group of justices has to be approved to continue or to go away, and then have another election, I guess, to refill that seat or something.
Can you unpack that for us? So instead of just like in Wisconsin, the terms are 10 years, and then there's an election. In Pennsylvania, there is first a preliminary, I guess, election to say, do you want to keep this person? Yes or no?
Should we keep them or not?
If it's no, then it goes to an election.
But typically they say yes. I mean, overwhelmingly, that's what's typical. It's very unusual for a sitting justice to not be retained. They leave of their own accord, I would say, typically. But the Republicans, seeing that in nearby Virginia, they're going to lose that governorship, and they've said, we don't want to throw any more money into this dumpster fire. So we're going to put the money in this important election in the state Supreme Court, because in 2028, when you-know-who tries to fight for re-election and to disprove election results and everything else, this is the largest swing state. Pennsylvania has the most electoral votes of all the swing states. So they want to control this election, get rid of at least 2 of those 3 Democratic justices, and have a chance, like you say, to replace them with Republicans, which would be deadly for Democrats, deadly for a long, long time.
And the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania does have partisan elections. So unlike Wisconsin, our neighbor, where Jim is a resident, those are nonpartisan elections, but in Pennsylvania, they are partisan. You run under a political party. I just want to point out there, when you say you-know-who, the current president of the United States is constitutionally barred from running for a 3rd term. So he can float that all he wants, but even the Supreme Court would have to agree that cannot happen. But that doesn't preclude, to your point, of them always, the
typical
MAGA party always looking for any opportunity to mess around with election results.
The Republicans are
that they don't like,
trying to get a lot of new people signed up to vote, and they're spending millions of dollars on a state Supreme Court race. That's how important they think this is. The 3 justices are, I just had their names, Christine Donahue, Kevin Doherty, and David Wecht, if I'm saying his name correctly. So I encourage you to get involved in this election any way you can. And that's about all that I can say about that. But this should be a really high priority for you. The Republicans think we're asleep at the wheel, so you should get on this.
I want to be clear. That is not an endorsement.
No.
We have not made an endorsement in the race. We are a pro-democracy show, though. So, for instance, last week's weekly episode of Thinking Queerly, where we dive into an issue with a specific guest, we had on a guest from Vote Forward, an organization that tries to get folks involved in getting out the vote. And this was one of the one of the elections that we talked about with them. And they have ways where you can, even if you don't live in Pennsylvania, you can write to folks. You're going to have a letter writing campaign where you can write to potential voters and say, this is why you should get out to vote. It is a nonpartisan organization that is trying to get out the vote, which is going to be very important here.
You should get involved any way you can. I would put it at the top of your priority list. I would also put the Virginia governorship race on the top of your list to be paying attention to or volunteering for, or whatever you think is right. Yeah.
Well, we are a pro-democracy show. We endorse that. So find ways of getting involved in the electoral system. And even though you don't live in these particular states, you can connect with them. For instance, Vote Forward is going to have a letter writing campaign for the redistricting. The election in California around should they redistrict their maps. You can get involved with that campaign as well. Being involved in a democracy helps us keep our democracy, and we are a pro-democracy show as it relates to that. All right, here. So anything else that you'd like to share on that before we wrap up and head to break?
Don't forget, we have 3 special elections. This year looks like it's gonna tie a record for 6 special elections in the state of Minnesota. We have 2 state Senate elections coming up, and the late Melissa Hortman's seat is also up. That re-election is in September, and then the 2 state Senate elections are in November. Really important. Again, don't be looking away because it's not an election year. If you're in that district and you can get involved, and your vote is really important in those 3 races.
Yeah. And I am working with the editor of Bolt's magazine, who does the best voter guides and election guides in the country. If you don't know about them, Bolt's magazine, and really fabulous work that they're doing over there. We're going to bring on their executive director later in the month to talk about these. All right, our legal episode is going to continue when we come back. You are listening to The Gailey Show on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPTA 20, Chicago's Progressive Talk. More after this break.
Hi, this is Desi Doyen of the Green News Report and the Bradcast. You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Why must the world be so cold? They've gone against what was told. Thinking rape is cool, think about it. They think it's not wrong, violence against women, the rape, the abuse, the emotional, physical. They all hold the hate, think about it. Is it right or wrong? What attracts you? I'm not saying no names, but you laugh. Talk about it like nothing is wrong. Think about it. They all hold the hate. Gotta stop the violence. Stop the hate. Think about it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Four Sisters Farmers Market is more than a place to shop for delicious organic food. It's a celebration of Indigenous culture, food sovereignty, and community. Now in its 11th season, the market offers healthy, affordable, culturally appropriate local foods every Thursday from 11 to 3. Located on the American Indian Cultural Corridor off Franklin Avenue, Four Sisters Farmers Market is a project of NACD. Every Thursday now through October, discover more about Four Sisters Farmers Market by visiting nacd.org.
Hi, Penny here from Nightingale in Minneapolis. Exciting news! During the warmer months, we're extending our charm to the patio. Imagine savoring your favorite dishes outside, surrounded by the lively energy of South Minneapolis near 26th and Lyndale. And guess what? Nightingale's patio is not just a dining space, it's also dog-friendly. Craft cocktails, curated wines, and half-price bottles of wine on Mondays are still part of the deal. Open daily 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. with a full menu until midnight. Join us at Nightingale where good times and great flavors come together.
This is Alex Knorr from Buzzcut Mowing, a young, hardworking entrepreneur serving the Southwest Metro with affordable lawn care. I take the hard work off your plate with weekly mowing. I also offer leaf cleanups, aeration, dethatching, tree trimming, and mulch installation. I'll keep your lawn beautiful so you can enjoy your weekends with the people who matter most. Visit buzzcutmowingmn.com. That's buzzcutmowingmn.com.
Hey friends, this is John Parker from The Gailey Show. When I travel, I want to go somewhere where I can unwind, get back to nature like with waterfalls and hiking, enjoy some classic downtown shopping with good restaurants, and also just be myself as a queer person without worries. That's why twice a year for the past 10 years, I've been visiting Michigan's Marquette County. This fall, join me and head up to the Fresh Coast. Visit travelmarquette.com to start your journey.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly sunny skies today with a high near 63, tonight partly cloudy with a low around 44, and Thursday rain with a high around 64. Treasure Island set sail a children's theater company on September 9th. Join young Jim Hawkins and the infamous Long John Silver on an adventure packed with pirates, sword fights, live music, and heart-pounding action. Tickets are going fast. Get yours now at childrenstheater.org. That's childrenstheater.org.
AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPTA 20, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Welcome back to The Gailey Show, the only daily LGBTQ radio news and talk show in the United States. I'm your host, John Parker, joined by my executive producer, Jim Pounds, here in the studio. It is 33 minutes after the hour. So you may have heard the recent story of how a server at a Minnesota Buffalo Wild Wings followed an 18-year-old into the bathroom at the restaurant to harass them. Well, Gender Justice, a Minnesota-based legal advocacy organization, has filed a lawsuit against Buffalo Wild Wings, charging them with discrimination under the Minnesota Human Rights Act. Joining us is Sara Jane Baldwin, who is the senior staff attorney at Gender Justice. Her legal career has run the gamut from legal aid and public defense to municipal and entertainment law. Sara Jane was previously an at-large board member of the Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers and a member of the 6th Judicial District's Equal Justice Committee. She is currently a member of the Minnesota Judges Criminal Bench Book Committee and co-author of the Bench Books chapter on driving while impaired. Sara Jane, welcome to the Gailey Show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's start with the facts of the case as you describe them in your lawsuit. What happened at this Buffalo Wild Wings in Owatonna, Minnesota?
Yeah, so first I want to clarify that it's not a lawsuit yet. We have filed a charge of discrimination at the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. And so basically that process entails writing a very brief factual statement about what happened. You literally check some boxes that say what kind of discrimination you're alleging. And you submit that to the department. If they think it falls under something that they address, they accept the charge. People can do this on their own. You don't need a lawyer to file a charge of discrimination if you think you've been discriminated against. So that is what we have done with this case at this time. Many of our cases start here because there are many ways to resolve them here. But to answer your question about the facts of the case, yes, our client, her name is Gerika Mudra. She lives in Owatonna, Minnesota. This took place this past April at Easter time. She was out to dinner with her friend and they were at a Buffalo Wild Wings, again in Owatonna. And Gerika felt like they were being treated sort of rudely by their server from the time they got in the restaurant. They just sort of noticed that she was being friendly to other tables, but not as friendly to Gerika and her friend. That's just something she noticed, but she eventually, as many of us do, got up to use the restroom. She went to the women's restroom, as she always does. And immediately after she got in there and got into the stall, someone opened the main door and yelled in, "The man has to get out of here." Gerika answered back, "I'm a girl." Again, she was 18 years old at the time. I think she's still 18. She was in her senior year of high school. And the person who it was her server who had followed her back there just wouldn't let it go. Was like, "You can't be in here. The man can't be in here." Went into the bathroom, banged on the stall. Gerika described just feeling, many things, panicked, not knowing what to do, obviously scared, humiliated. Eventually, she opened the stall door and felt compelled to have to unzip her hoodie to show she had a t-shirt on underneath, but to show she had breasts. She's a girl, to get the woman to go away. After that, she went back to her meal and nothing was said. The manager on duty ended up serving them for the rest of their meal, but didn't make an apology or say anything. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. So how did Gender Justice then get involved in this to want to support this? Because this is something, and I want to touch base with this later. This is something that is not unique, unfortunately, to Minnesota right now. So how did you all come to be, I guess, how would you just representing Gerika in this?
Yeah, so when Gerika got home, she told her stepmother what happened, and her stepmother was furious. She ended up writing a public Facebook post about it that ended up kind of going viral. And so it just went out there and they got a little concerned, like, "Oh my gosh, how do we handle this?" And so they contacted us. I can't remember if it was that next Monday. I can't remember exactly when. So they contacted us. I think they called some other people too, and ended up deciding to work with us. We offered our support. I think we saw this as being very much in line with a lot of the things we're hearing from many people, in our communities, in our state and beyond right now. This was not a unique story. So we started working with her and her family just to find out, what they needed and what they wanted. And in discussing options, decided to start by filing this charge of discrimination.
So and thank you for the clarification of this, the difference between a charge of discrimination and a lawsuit. And I think why we like to have more and more legal episodes on the Gailey Show is to avail ourselves of all of the resources that are available to us. And you said that you do not need to have a lawyer to file this charge of discrimination. Can you walk us then through, unpack a little bit more of that process then of the difference between the two, and like if the Minnesota Human Rights, if they decide to take this on, do they then take over the investigation? Do you all stay involved with that? Like, how does that whole process work?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I love talking about this because I want people to know about this process, because I want people to assert their rights. We have a very robust human rights law in Minnesota, the Minnesota Human Rights Act. It's one of the strongest human rights laws in the country. We're very proud that we were the first state in the country to protect against gender identity discrimination in our human rights law. That's a big deal, obviously at issue in this case. And so, yeah, if you feel you've been discriminated against again, you can look at the law, and it's whether it's in your employment, in a business, or in education or public accommodations. There's different areas that are protected, public services. And you are from what we call a protected group or a protected class. It means you were discriminated against based on your race, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability status. There's a whole list. You can go on their website. It's the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. It's very easy to find, and they have a process to fill out a little form. If you do it on your own without an attorney, they will review it and contact you and do a little interview. They have a separate process for attorneys that we obviously know pretty well at Gender Justice. So we just fill out the charge right away and submit it. Once we submit it, assuming they accept it, which they did in this case, and they usually do with lawyers who know how to do this, they will serve it on the respondent. So in this case, we actually drafted 2 charges, one against the particular restaurant and then one against corporate Buffalo Wild Wings. They have their little process, they get it, they serve it, and then once it's received, the other side has 30 days to submit an answer. That answer tends to be although it varies depending on the different respondents, a sort of legal response. So addressing the claims, giving their version, and then some sort of legal argument about why they aren't liable for discrimination. Again, they have 30 days to do that. We will get a copy of that answer, and then we have an option to file what's called a rebuttal, where we can make our legal argument, because we haven't really made one yet. We just sort of laid out the facts. And so we will then submit that. That just goes to the Department of Human Rights. And then they begin their investigation. So yes, the department does the investigation. That often entails an interview with the charging party. So as opposed to a plaintiff, in this case, the person who files the charge is called the charging party. So that's Gerika in our case. Sometimes they'll do an interview just to ask some follow-up questions about the allegations and whatnot. They may also do that with the respondent. They can ask for more documents, follow up, and stuff like that. And then they make a determination. And this is the only thing they do, is they determine whether there is or is not probable cause to believe that discrimination took place. So they issue a written finding and the summary of their findings. And it's either, yes, there's probable cause, or there's no probable cause. And then there's a bunch of different ways it can go. Anywhere throughout this process, if the parties want to, they can opt into mediation. But after the PC finding comes out, you can engage in what's called conciliation, which is a process where the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, who has found discrimination and said their law that they enforce, the Minnesota Human Rights Act, has been violated, engage in this process to try to resolve it, where the department asks for the organization, whether, Buffalo Wild Wings here, or if it's a school or an employer, to change, to do some, whether it's policy change that's needed, whether it's training, whatever it is, structural change. And then at that time, depending on the case, the charging party can ask for damages of some kind based on their harms from the incident. You don't have to do conciliation. Neither side does. It's optional, but the department facilitates it. And again, at any time, you have the option to file a lawsuit. So we could tomorrow be like, you know what? We don't care what they're going to say. We're just going to go and file this in district court. You don't have to stay in this process, but you can't file a lawsuit while you're in this process. They're exclusive. And so we would have to withdraw from this and then go there. And so often what will happen is, if we get a PC finding, we will then take that, which is a valuable document written by the state's Department of Human Rights, and it'll be part of, what we have in our arsenal to go to district court and file an actual lawsuit.
And this would be a court, like a state court, not a federal court.
Correct. Yes. Definitely. Yep. This is the Minnesota Human Rights Act, which is the state statute under state laws, and you bring those claims in state district court. So yeah, if it just a parallel you may have heard of, or your listeners may have heard of, a sort of parallel process at federal level would be to go to like the EEOC or something like that to make a claim like this at that agency level.
Thank you for clarifying that. I talked to so many, LGBTQ folks, and they're like, "Oh, courts, it's going to end up at the Supreme Court, and we're going to lose." And I wanted to make the distinction, like, no, in this instance, I believe it would be in the state, which means it could potentially, depending on how all this goes. And you laid out, there's so many different paths that this particular case could go towards. I guess it may be then too soon to ask, like, what types of relief? Like in terms of the organization itself, like would you all be seeking policy changes, training changes with the organization to ensure that this doesn't happen again? I believe Buffalo Wild Wings is also a Minnesota-based company. Are they?
Yeah, I worked in advertising, and I worked for their agency, and I worked with Buffalo Wild Wings for a long time. And most of these stores, 99% of them are franchises, but not all. And I don't remember exactly about Owatonna, but they used to be headquartered here unless they've been acquired. And I don't know if that's true or not. But
I think the charge that we filed against corporate, I think, was sent to an Atlanta address we found, but it's I don't know. We just found what seemed like the right place to send it in. We went with that, so we'll see.
Right.
But would there be? Sorry, go ahead.
In terms of what we're looking for, and obviously what Gerika is looking for in her family is, it'd be nice to have acknowledgement that what happened was wrong, right? That they see that harm was caused and they regret that. Like, it'd be great to hear that for Gerika. I think that to that end, it'd be great if they took accountability, like commit to doing better. Like, we don't want to be a restaurant that treats people this way and is, harassing people and policing people's bodies when they just need to use the restroom. I think that obviously a big hope would be that sort of the broader message about the dangers of this sort of sex stereotyping and sort of, I guess, like the vilification of transgender people generally that's happening broadly gets out beyond this one restaurant, beyond this one restaurant chain. I mean, it's Gerika is not transgender. She's a cisgendered girl. She also happens to be biracial. We do see a lot more of this body policing with brown and black bodies. That is, there are so many different levels of concern with what happened here. There's, I think a day or two after this case dropped, Texas had a bathroom bill on its legislative floor.
Sara Jane, I'm hearing the music. I've got to take a very quick break here. Let's pick it up there because those two are very much linked, and there's some other stories I want to ask you about of this happening outside of the state of Minnesota. So we're going to take a quick break here. More with Sara Jane from Gender Justice after this break.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. It's the start of our favorite season in Minnesota, football season. With all the hype and action this season brings, we know things can get loud and messy quick. Before you invite your friends and family over to watch the big game, you better call my cleaning heroes at Zero Res to clean up all of those fumble moments in your home. And as always, you can score a guaranteed touchdown with great savings from Zero Res this month. If you weren't able to take advantage of Zero Res's Labor Day sale, great news, the Labor Day sale has been extended. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at $119, plus a free hallway and $75 off an air duct cleaning. Having Zero Res over will be a big victory for your home. You'll always come away a winner, even if the guys in the purple or the maroon don't. Call 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Greg Bakken here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com.
Your time is precious. Why are you still mowing your own lawn? I'm Alex Knorr, a young, hardworking entrepreneur serving the Southwest Metro with affordable lawn care. At Buzzcut Mowing, I offer weekly mowing, leaf cleanups, aeration, dethatching, tree trimming, and mulch installation. I work hard so you can relax and enjoy time with family and friends. Call today and I'll handle the rest. Visit buzzcutmowingmn.com. That's buzzcutmowingmn.com.
The Brave New Workshop is a Minneapolis tradition and the nation's longest-running comedy theater, finding ways to make people laugh about things that should make them cry for over 65 years. And who doesn't need a good laugh right now? Seriously, who doesn't need a laugh? Come see their fall show, Hippocalypse Now, a hilarious look at a world where what people say and what people do are completely unrelated. Playing now through November 1st at the Dudley Riggs Theater in Minneapolis. Tickets available at hennepinarts.org. That's hennepinarts.org.
The independently owned Next Chapter Booksellers is the perfect destination for your next book. The friendly staff at Next Chapter Booksellers are great at making recommendations no matter your age or taste. Plus, they have frequent events including book readings and meet and greets with authors. And they sell more than just books. They have a wide variety of puzzles and games, too. So stop in and browse the store off Snelling and Grand in St. Paul. More at nextchapterbooksellers.com.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. We are coming up on the top of the hour. I'm your host, John Parker. Sara Jane Baldwin is the senior staff attorney at Gender Justice. Gender Justice has filed a charge of discrimination against Buffalo Wild Wings after a server followed an 18-year-old into the bathroom and harassed them based on their perceived gender identity. The server was incorrect in that. Sara Jane, before the break, you mentioned that this charge that you filed with the Minnesota Human Rights Commission came as Texas, the state of Texas, was introducing their bathroom bill. Maybe we can pick it up there.
Yeah, I think it was just really notable that day to, well, it was notable because one of the legislators on their floor mentioned our case. Just, this just happened, Wow. And again, we aren't the first. There's other one, you Google it. It's happened at a Walmart and there was another one at a hotel. And so I think when this case came to us, it was so upsetting and also just so timely. Like it just cut to the heart of what's wrong with everything that's happening right now. And to try to legislate who can use what bathroom when based on appearance just obviously raises so many concerns. But I do think that a lot of people don't think about all the ways these sorts of things could impact people. People don't assume that it's going to be a problem for them. And so I think it's just probably a thing that would be really good to see come out of this case and the press and the attention it has gotten is for people to sort of think a little more about what they're asking for and about what their problem really is with who is using what bathroom.
Mm-hmm. And, thankfully here in Minnesota, we have that very robust Minnesota Human Rights Act. And for folks who don't know, Minnesota led the way in adding gender identity into our act. This was back in the early 90s. And for folks who don't know, I want to share a couple of these stories. So Kalela Morton, 19, of Phoenix, her and her ex-girlfriend at the time were using adjacent stalls in this is the Walmart story. Morton identifies as a stud, which is queer slang for black masculine presenting lesbian. A store employee followed her into the bathroom, again banging on the door. Kalela also felt like she had to raise her shirt to show that she had, breasts. And even then, the deputies were like, "You still look like a man," and didn't believe her. Was still being harassed by the cops after that. And then there was a case of Luca Strobel in South Carolina, the Sand Dollar Social Club bar, where Luca used the bathroom so Luca identifies as a trans male, but used the bathroom on their driver's license. So went into the women's bathroom. The bar owner went in there, again banging on the door, pushed them out of the bathroom and then out of the club into the arms of a police officer, who then arrested them on trumped up charges of drunken disorderly conduct, which there was like video, and apparently like, no, this was not, they were not drunken disorderly. And so these were two cases that got to us that were just jaw dropping, as you said, Sara Jane, including now this one with Gerika in Owatonna at the Buffalo Wild Wings, where it's what did they think was going to happen when they started doing this? This is exactly the chaos that was going to ensue. Am I wrong in that? Where we're going to now have either staff or just regular citizens policing who can and can't go into a bathroom and creating havoc.
Right.
Am I wrong about that, Sara Jane?
No, I mean, I think you said that really well. It's just, it's so frightening. And I do think that a lot of people who aren't in this headspace like I am every day just aren't thinking about the possible consequences. But it was been really heartening to see the response to this case. You know, I admit I'm in a bit of a bubble of people who think like me, but I heard from other people we heard some people beyond this and people talking about having conversations with other people in their lives. They're like, well, I don't want that to happen. It's like, well, that's what's going to happen. Right. And also let's talk about what is it you're scared of? Like, what is it you're concerned about? What if Gerika was a trans man? Or what if it was like, what is it you think is going to happen in a bathroom stall? Who is it we're scared of? Right. If we're worried that a potential man just went in the women's restroom, let's talk about that, because it's not, you know, we can't, and I think what is so like simple about the protections, simple is not the right word, but like clean about the protections in the Minnesota Human Rights Act, it's just like, you just can't do that here. And you can't do it even if you're mistaken or wrong about someone's status. You know, Gerika she identifies as a lesbian, she was with her girlfriend, and I'm guessing that played into I mean, I don't know what the server was thinking, to be honest, but like everything about the situation caused the waitress to perceive something that led her to follow this 18-year-old into the bathroom. And yeah, it's super upsetting, but I feel like it's an opportunity to educate and advocate, and that's what we're hoping to do with it.
Real quick, under what policy was this server operating under that like justified that they felt I have a policy to stand on here? Is there anything in Buffalo Wild Wings staff handbook that says, yes, you are empowered to go and do this? Just curious.
I can't wait to find out. I mean, that's what we're waiting to find out, right? A nice thing about starting a case at this agency level is you might start to get that kind of information from the other party that you would usually get in discovery in a lawsuit. Just find out like, how are they training people? What are their policies? Are they addressing things like this? Do they do anything other than check a box on the first day that they read a handbook? Like, how do they make sure that they have a culture that is inclusive and welcoming, that is aligned with Minnesota law? Because I think it's easy to talk about how upsetting and like wrong this is, but it's also unlawful in Minnesota to harass people based on who they are or your perception of who they are. Right. And that's why we're moving forward with this.
Well, and you said something magical, I thought, and that is the manager didn't come over and apologize or take any responsibility. You know, that to me speaks volumes about what was really going on there, frankly.
Well, thank you, Sara Jane Baldwin, Senior Staff Attorney at Gender Justice. We'll be following up, have you back on here to give us updates on the case as it goes along. Thank you also, everyone, for listening and or watching today. Up next on WCPT 820 is Choose Views with Richard Chu. On AM 950 Radio, it's the Matt McNeil Show, and stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio. And then at 10 p.m. Central, Step into the Unknown with Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio. You can stream our show everywhere you get your podcasts or at youtube.com/@The Gailey Show. And until tomorrow, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.